What if the demons described by ancient mystics were not supernatural beings, but a startlingly accurate map of your own brain's inner workings? This isn't just a metaphor. It's a scientific detective story where the prime suspect is a specific neural circuit called the default mode network, or DMN. The DMN is most active when you are at rest. When you're daydreaming, recalling memories, thinking about the future, or engaging in that constant inner dialogue we all experience. Every time you drift off during a boring meeting or find yourself lost in thought while walking down the street, your DMN is running the show. Neuroscientists discovered this network by observing what parts of the brain remained active when subjects were not focused on any external task. This constant mental chatter is the foundation of what we call our narrative self, the story about who you are that you continuously tell yourself. This narrative self is built from past experiences, remembered triumphs and failures, and imagined futures, all stitched together into what feels like a solid, unchanging personality. The DMN acts as your brain's personal biographer, relentlessly editing, interpreting, and solidifying your life story, making it feel permanent and rigid. It is no coincidence that many ancient spiritual traditions, particularly those of the East, seem to be aimed squarely at stopping this very process. Buddhism's concept of the monkey mind is an almost perfect folk description of a hyperactive default mode network, jumping from thought to thought without rest. Early Christian ascetics spoke of battling demons of temptation and pride. Perhaps they were wrestling with their own overactive narrative selves. This fallen mind, consumed by its own stories, is what happens when the DMN goes into overdrive, turning our greatest asset, self-awareness, into a prison. Consider rumination, that obsessive replaying of negative past events. This is your DMN stuck in a loop, creating what ancient mystics would call the demon of despondency or despair. The relentless self-criticism and guilt that haunt many of us. That's the DMN acting as an inner prosecutor, the demon that tirelessly accuses the sinner. Anxious thoughts about the future, the constant what-if scenarios, are your DMN spinning catastrophic tales, summoning the demons of fear and temptation. And what about egocentrism and self-absorption? This is the DMN's narrative self at its most powerful, creating a world where only your story matters, the pride that was called the root of all evil. This uncontrolled inner monologue feels so alien and hostile precisely because it prevents us from experiencing the present moment. The DMN's job is to pull you out of the now into a simulated past or future, but when it dominates, you become an exile from your own life. So, how did our ancestors fight these demons? They unknowingly developed sophisticated methods for what we now call neurohacking. Take meditation and mindfulness. These are not just spiritual practices, they are direct training regimens for suppressing DMN activity. By focusing intensely on the present moment, the sensation of your breath entering and leaving your body, you are forcing your brain off its default path. You are switching from self-reflection mode to direct experience mode, effectively telling your DMN to stand down. The same principle applies to repetitive prayers like the Jesus Prayer, or mantras and chants found in Hinduism and Buddhism. These practices occupy your brain's verbal processing centers with simple, repetitive input, leaving no room for the DMN to generate its complex narratives. It is a brilliant trick. You use one brain function, focused repetition, to override another, the free-wandering inner narrator. Even extreme practices like fasting and asceticism have a neurological basis for their effects on this inner demon. When you fast, your brain chemistry shifts dramatically. Ketone bodies become a primary fuel source, which has been shown to influence mood and cognitive function. This biochemical change can dampen the DMN's activity, leading to feelings of mental clarity and quietude that were once interpreted as divine union. Sensory deprivation through isolation has a similar effect. By removing external stimuli, you force the brain to confront its own noise. Initially, this can be terrifying as the DMN screams for attention, but if one persists, the network exhausts itself and finally falls silent. All these struggles with demons were, in essence, effective methods for taming a hypertrophied ego and quieting the noise in one's head. The saints and sages were neuroscientists of the soul. They used the tools available to them, discipline, faith, and introspection, to map the contours of their own minds. Their descriptions of battling inner demons were not fantasies, but sophisticated phenomenological reports on subjective brain states. Understanding the DMN does not devalue these spiritual experiences. On the contrary, it provides them with a solid, empirical foundation. It shows us that the feelings of transcendence, oneness, and inner peace are accessible states of consciousness, not miracles. The enemy we face within is not a supernatural force, but a function of our own brain that has become overdominant. The default mode network is essential for our humanity. It gives us creativity, empathy, and a sense of self, but it must be governed. Like a powerful fire, it provides warmth and light when contained, but can burn down the whole house if left to rage uncontrolled. Modern humans are uniquely positioned to conduct this inner war with unprecedented consciousness and effectiveness. We now have the language of neuroscience to describe our inner landscape and can validate ancient techniques with modern data. The struggle for peace, focus, and freedom from our own mental noise is not new. It is perhaps the oldest human story. But today, we are finally beginning to understand that our demons are made of neurons, and our salvation lies in mastering their circuitry.